I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of Thursday, May 19th of the City Council, Library Board, Housing Authority Board, and the City Council representing the Redevelopment Successor Agency. And with that, I'll call for a flag salute, and our Economic Director, Sean Smith, would you be kind enough to lead us?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So there's that. Maybe we have the roll call, please.
Mayor or Councilmember Hobart.
Here.
Councilmember KITE.
Here.
Councilmember Smartridge. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Townsend.
Here.
And Mayor Weil.
Here. We have a presentation now by the Rancho Mirage High School Resource Officer, Brian Decker. And I will say that I had the pleasure of spending some time with Brian when I was principal for the day. He was kind enough to show me around. I was most impressed with how you handle things at the school. It's just terrific. And you gave me a great tour that day, so thank you.
Thank you. Who I brought with me today were 4 of our students that were involved in our every 15-minute program that Rancho Mirage did this year. The program was all student-driven. Video was done by students, everything by students. So what we're going to do is I'll have each of them introduce themselves, and we'll give a little talk, and then you'll watch a slideshow that they put together.
Good afternoon. My name is Daisy Castaneda, and I'm a senior at Rancho Mirage High School.
Hi, my name is Montserrat Ruiz. I am a junior at Rancho Mirage High School.
Hello, my name is Ronnie Cabrera, and I am a senior at Rancho Mirage High School.
Good afternoon. My name is Christian Orozco, and I am a junior at Rancho Mirage High School.
So the students, Daisy is our president of our SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions. Monse is the vice president, and then Christopher and Ronnie are our videographers that basically put the whole video together of the every 15-minute program.
Okay. I had the great opportunity this year of being the president of the Students Against Destructive Decisions program, and I also had the privilege of hosting the Every 15 Minutes program, the first one at our school. And the Every 15 Minutes program was a great success that impacted the lives of many students at our school. And we started with a total of 20 students, but we ended up with 16 Living Dead participants. And
We truly believe that your donation and cooperation benefited not only the lives of those 16 students. Your donations were also used for every detail that we incorporated in this project, such as materials for the cemetery, supplies that we used for our overnight retreat, our reception, and also filming our video.
And we cannot describe the amount of thanks that we give to you guys for making this project a success. It really did benefit not only our lives, but the lives of many people at our school, and we don't have words to express how grateful we are. Thank you.
Now we'll just watch a short 2-minute slideshow presentation. So that was just a short little slideshow. The actual video, I think I try to upload it to Josh. We'll see if it gets to you guys. It's actually a 35-minute video that our two videographers put together. It's a pretty impressive video for high school students to put together. It was a very impactful event. So to give our little appreciation, to give back to you guys, we have T-shirts and a thank you letter for all city council members and the mayor. Could I also have Chief Cortez and Lieutenant Shields come up, and we'll give them a T-shirt and a thank you letter too.
It's about time somebody recognized that we weren't as well dressed as we could be.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Go Rattlers. Thank you.
Yes.
Officer Decker,
I already have one. Thank you.
Yes.
maybe you could give some information about this program, as long as we don't have the video that we're going to be showing right now.
You got an extra one?
And you can explain a little bit about what happens in your presentation on the field of the schools. And I know you are doing this program about every 18 to 24 months.
Correct.
And I know we have tried to finance you as well as possible to make sure the program is successful, and maybe it can be done more frequently. But maybe you can explain how the people that are involved in this program, as far as the law enforcement and fire department, and the equipment that they bring out to the school, and the kids who portray victims in a car accident. Maybe you could go into a little bit of detail about that.
Sure. So the Every 15-Minute program started sometime around 2000, 2002. It was a DUI, drug and alcohol-related awareness program that they put together to give students, high school students, understanding of the dangers of drinking and driving. Because we know today that our teens and our younger kids are the ones that are more susceptible to drinking, driving, getting in traffic accidents and dying. Every 15 minutes came about because every 15 minutes somebody in the United States dies in a traffic-related collision. It was like that when they started 15 years ago. It's not every 15 minutes now. It's like every 22 minutes. The program is working. So the Every 15-Minute program, we started with this program. It's every 2 years. You give it to the juniors and senior class only. So every 2 years, the juniors and seniors see this program at the school. You select a wide range of students, try to select about 20 students from theater, athletics, all different areas, so it affects different areas of the school. You select them students, their parents come on board. We have meetings with the parents and students. We go to a retreat the night before the Every 15-Minute, where they actually listen to guest speakers. If anybody, we had Jeff Perotti speak this year, just got out of prison, 24 and a half years, manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter here in Rancho Mirage. He was a powerful speaker the day of the event, the dangers of drinking and driving that he gave. So the students, the parents get involved. We go through the whole process through the 6 months of what would happen if you were involved in a DUI-related traffic collision, from the arrest to the booking in the jail where we filmed, to the court scene being sentenced, to the funeral scene that you see in the video. We had actually had the mother of the child that was deceased, had her speak. She didn't think it would be that emotional. She probably spoke for about 15 seconds before she broke down. And she knew her child hadn't passed away. She knew her child was just at home. But just the event, just feeling that. The day of the event, What we do is we set up a mock traffic collision. We stage cars, we stage kids in the cars that they were in the traffic collision. We run it just like a 911 call that you had a traffic collision. It's PA system live over the air, calling fire department, calling the sheriff's department. They respond and they just do their normal stuff. Use jaws of life, cut kids out. Coroner shows up. We have a couple kids that are dead. Zip them up in body bags, put them in the back of the coroner vehicle. During this whole event, the whole juniors and senior class is watching this event go through. After that, we went into the gymnasium and we did a mock funeral. We had karate speak, and we had a couple parents also speak with the district attorney, spoke about, what would happen if you got sentenced or if you got arrested for drunk driving and you killed one of your friends or your students. So the impact was huge. I mean, there's so many kids that when they went through it, they said, I will never, ever, ever even think about touching alcohol after they've gone through this whole experience. We had parents that were involved in it that had already had siblings or somebody die in their family related to a traffic-related collision. So they already knew the feeling of what it was like to go through this. So it was a very impactful event. The kids did a great job on putting it together. It's just, it's a life-changing. The first time I've done it, and I think I cried probably 10 times, at least throughout the whole time. Each time is something different that you experience, and you don't realize. You see these kids every day, you put them together, they're almost one of your own. And next thing you know, it's not real, but if you see him, even the kid that got arrested for DUI, I felt so bad for him. Watching him being sentenced to 24 and a half years in prison by the judge, and the speech that the judge gave was just, it was very impactful for everybody.
Well, thank you, Officer Decker. I'll say this, your slide presentation, albeit reasonably short, extremely emotional. And I'm sure the message got through. Every parent should be watching it. We thank you so much for the time, and thank all of the people here too have done a great job putting it together. Thank you.
I just want to thank the city, the fire department, the sheriff's department, coroner. I mean, we had KESQ do it. If you get to watch the video that I uploaded, KSQ did a breaking news story for us, showing it, and it was all the way through. I mean, we had so much help and support by the community. It was great.
Well, thank you. We can't get the message out enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And also, if I might ask that, I know we've shown your video several years ago, the 35-minute video on our Rancho Mirage television. So if your new video is available, and when it is available, perhaps you could drop it by City Hall and we can see about putting it back on our MTV.
Yeah, I'll get with Josh and see if he got the link that I sent him today, because it's a very large file. It's 26 gigabyte, if you know gig. It's a huge file that can't be put on any CD.
I did receive that video.
Huh?
I did receive that video.
You did? And it worked? Oh, good. So if you guys can share it with you guys, it's a pretty neat video, and it's really good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. We'll now go on to the non-agenda public comment. We have one request. Andy Gladstein.
I'd first like to say that looks like a great program, really impactful. Back in February, we sent a letter to the mayor, which unfortunately we didn't get a response to, regarding the fountain at the bottom of the hill. As you know, the fountain has been under scrutiny because it hasn't been working. We've gone through extensive leak testing and repairs these past months to try to fix it. It's had leaks, breaks, a 12-inch plumbing line underground, 8 feet underground, has been broken. We spent about $12,000 to fix that. We've been in Tier 5 penalties to about $24,000. Even with the fountain plumbing repairs, we figured after the experts have gone through it, it'll cost a minimum of about $180,000 to fix the fountain. It's a very expensive proposition. The foliage above the fountain has leached into it and is causing more leaks. In addition to that, the beautification of Frank Sinatra at the bottom of the hill, which we've been working on, will cost an additional $150,000 to $180,000 to do. And the Master Association, which I'm the president of, has asked me to come to the board, the City Council, and we simply cannot pay for it. We don't have the funds in our reserve. In 2015, we did some work. We presented a plan, and we did design work around the water towers, as you remember, which ran about $106,000, which was approved. We did the same basic plan at the bottom of the hill, which was not approved. We came back, and it was not approved again, and unfortunately, to redo it the way the city wants us to do it, it's about $153,000. Putting them all together between the beautification of the street and fixing this fountain will run close to $400,000, which the association just does not have. So we're going to ask the City Council to help the association work with us on the fountain and to partner with us to fix the fountain. And otherwise, the fountain's going to stay dry. We cannot afford to fix the fountain and do the street, and the street's going to be our priority right now.
The only encouragement I can give you, of course, is typically is to present a plan to the planning department. Evidently, you have done that.
We have.
And that's the procedure that you would have to go through. They'll review it, and of course, it would then be presented to the City Council for approval or denial.
Okay, well, unfortunately, the fountain is going to stay dry for quite a while unless we get help from the city to fix it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Randy, I'd like to ask you a question. It was just said that by Mr. Gladstein that he sent me a letter dated February 1, as I recall, 2016, and that he got no response from the mayor. I gave you that letter, didn't I?
Yes.
And when I gave it to you, what did you do thereafter that would constitute the response of the city?
Well, Andy and I don't know if we talked, but we traded telephone calls. But my message to the property management company for the homeowners association was that the fountain and the landscaping up and down the street were installed by the assessment district and are maintained by the homeowners associations, which includes the owner of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and the Villas Murata and the Murata lots. And the fountain is a common area amenity of that homeowners association, and my recommendation is that the city not participate in funding the maintenance or rehab of the fountain, as it would set a dangerous precedent for the other 180 homeowners associations in the city of Rancho Mirage to come and ask for the city to maintain their common area amenities. Now, I know it's across from the entrance to City Hall, and I understand that it's a valuable aesthetic to the city. But that was my recommendation. And then I also asked our Public Works
Excuse
Director.
me, Randy, who did you, we got no correspondence whatsoever, voicemails or anything from the city after we sent this letter.
I did not write any correspondence. I spoke with people.
Do you know what people you spoke to?
Probably Carol, I think her name is. Is
Well,
she your
Carol
property
told me that-
manager?
Yeah, she said she received nothing from the city, so.
Well, but you know, Andy, you and I have discussed this issue.
No, Randy, you may have traded phone calls with me, but we never discussed anything about the fountain. Otherwise, it would have gone to the next level.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Which is, I guess, is where we're at now. But
Right.
one other thing, though, is I did ask our Public Works Director to look into this and to see if this 177,000 is a real number based on his experience in working in on public projects. And I know that Mark did do that research. I don't know if you talked with him directly, but Mark, if I could just put you on the spot and ask you to explain the research that you did do on this issue.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Gladstein. I did receive the information from Randy that we were concerned about the fountain and its function, and your request for the city to participate in improving it and maintaining it. My recommendation to Mr. Binder was that though as a private HOA, we couldn't do something along the lines of financial participation, but I did offer up our technical expertise. And if you recall, we've had a large number of emails where I've copied you. We worked with pool masters, a contractor local. We also worked with a company that does waterproofing on large and small scale projects, pools, ponds, tanks, that type of stuff. And we did in fact have a contractor out there physically evaluating the fountain with a recommendation to the way to approach the repairs. It was far under the dollar amount that you quoted in your letter. And I believe that what had happened is we also include Mr. Wolfstein, is it, Wolfgang, at the Ritz?
Wolfgram?
Wolfgram, thank you. We included him, and the correspondence was they received a proposal for somewhere in the ballpark of $70,000 to make the repairs to the fountain. They had decided to wait, fill the fountain, and run it for a period of time, and then assess whether the repairs they made already to date had in fact stemmed enough of the leak where it was feasible to continue running. And they in fact would correspond directly to the contractor who provided the recommendation with the material and specs as to how to repair that fountain. So it's in the hands of the HOA and Mr. Wolfgang.
And you did have email communication back and forth with Mr. Gladstein, didn't you?
I do. I have, and I retain those should he want to see them, but I have
I'd
a
like,
number
I'd
of
like
emails.
to see him since he says that he got no response, so I'd like to see him too.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, maybe it would be worthwhile to get members of the board together along with some of our staff and have a couple of council people sit down and try and look at some of the alternatives. Maybe we can't support it to the level that they need it, but we could look at various alternatives and maybe make some recommendations.
I think we have to be a little bit careful about that sort of thing, Mr. Kite. How many times have the homeowners from Rancho Mirage Country Club been here with the same sort of thing where they have serious economic problems that they look to us for assistance?
Yeah.
I
don't
think
think
that
it's the same situation.
nothing is the same except for the extent it's going to be taking public funds to solve a private issue.
No, I'm not talking about using city funds. I'm talking about sitting down and analyzing the problem, getting back to them with some solutions which don't involve city funding.
I think this, Mr. Gladstein, why don't you contact Mr. Binder and set up a meeting with him to discuss it further.
I will call Andy and set it up.
Okay, thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
We now have the minutes of May 5th. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
Is there anybody?
I'll ask. Was there anyone else in the audience, by the way, that had any comments regarding the minutes of May 5th?
No. Any subject.
Okay, motion stands approved. The next is the consent calendar, which will be handled by our city manager, Randy BYNDER. Is there anyone that would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor, are you going to have city council comments?
Okay. Thank you, I will. And would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. I just want to briefly let everybody know that 2 weeks from today, June 2nd, will be the day where the council announces the choices for, or the selections for the various commissions at the city. So if you're interested in serving the public and working with the city, I would recommend that you contact our city clerk and get an application. And we do still have openings for a number of commissions, so it's a very rewarding job, and I would hope that if you have an interest in the city, you'd get a form, fill it out, and hopefully you'll learn a lot more about the city in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana?
No, I have nothing.
Okay. Charlie?
Not good, thank you.
Iris? I will mention that each year the Greater Palm Springs Convention and Visitors Bureau holds its CVB Oasis Awards Luncheon. It celebrates excellence in tourism. This year's award was held on May 3rd, where 2 individuals from Rancho Mirage resorts were honored. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to congratulate our own Rancho Mirage Oasis winners for the following 2 categories. The first was the Back of the House Award to Gloria Hernandez from the Weston Mission Hills Golf Resort and Spa. And the second was the Frontline Award to Donald Maselli Jr. from the Ritz-Carlton Rancho Mirage. And these honors are reflective of the excellence in hospitality that we have all come to expect from our fine resorts in Rancho Mirage. So I applaud both of those people for their awards. Moving on to the consent calendar, and I will ask again, does anybody desire to have anything pulled
I'd
from
like to pull number 2, please.
number 2? Are there any
Number
others?
3, please.
Number 3?
Number 3.
Number 2 and 3 have been pulled. Are there any others? Randy, do you want to go through the consent calendar, please?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Item number 3, the 2-year fire services contract. Councilman, staff was going to ask that to be continued to your June 2nd meeting.
That's fine, thank you.
Is that okay? Okay. And then also remember there was an item 3A that was added regarding opposition to Senate Bill 1102, where the state was trying to interfere with collection of TOT potentially. And so that is also on your item number 3. I'll go through the consent calendar. Item number 1 is a library shelving project. You have a revised recommendation that's a little more detailed that was passed out, I think, yesterday to you. This is a contract to be awarded to McMurray Stern for shelving work to be performed in the library room, children's library, library children's room, and then also the library foundation book nook, which is basically the bookstore of the library. This is a $54,000 contract. The children's room shelving would be put on rollers so the bookshelves can be moved out and we could have a new community space in the future that might hold up to 200 people for lectures and workshops. And the improvements in the bookstore would allow better display of merchandise. Here's some photographs that you're looking at here of the work that would be done. And then in the bookstore, the changes would include displays of additional books, larger books, and make them more prominent to try to sell more used books and raise money for the foundation and the library. Library Director David Bryant and myself are recommending approval of this contract with McMurray Stern. And it would be funded through agency, successor agency bond proceeds. And it's already budgeted. Item number 2 is the one that is pulled regarding the PACE program, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Item number 3A. Item number 3 itself, which is the 2-year fire contract, will be placed on the June 2nd meeting. Staff wants an opportunity to work with our subcommittee and the fire department on wording of that contract. Item number 3A that was added to the agenda is an opposition to Senate Bill 1102, Senator McGuire, where the state would insert themselves into the TOT collection process rather than have that directly administered by the city, which is what we've always done. We are hesitant to allow the state to get involved in that process. We see them then moving to the next level, which is taking administrative fees or controlling it some other way. The city relies heavily on transit occupancy tax to maintain the fine quality of life and public services in the city of Rancho Mirage, and we join the League of California Cities in opposing Senate Bill 1102. So, Mr. Mayor, for the Council's consideration, you have a resolution of opposition in your packet today. Item number 4 is approval of contracts. There is one contract that is on that calendar that's pretty big, $146,971 for a network server for hosting virtual machines, which is a one of our information services technology upgrades. And I would just like to read, Mr. Mayor, the revised recommendation for approval of the contracts. That the City Council approve the terms of the contracts as set forth in Exhibit A and authorize the City Manager and City Attorney to negotiate the remaining terms not set in Exhibit A and then execute the subject contracts. Subject matter and the content would stay the same. Item number 5 on your consent calendar are demands, and staff is here and able to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the council have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one item on page 5-39, and maybe Sean can handle this. No, actually, I guess it's for the library. It's the expense for Time Warner Cable.
Which item?
Check number 202878.
Yes.
Time Warner Cable, Internet Access and Service, $6,702.
Yes, just a question as to whether that's an ongoing charge, monthly, annually, and what it provides.
Can we put anyone on the spot on this? I know we have a 5-year contract, I believe, with Time Warner. Aaron can? Okay. Aaron Espinoza, the operations manager for the award-winning City of Rancho Mirage Public Library.
How do I turn this on? There
it's on.
Okay. Good afternoon. That actually is for 2 months. There was a bill that was not provided to us. So this $6,702 was actually for 2 months of service. So we're actually only paying about, what is it, $3,200 a month? 30. So the $6,000 is for 2 service periods.
Okay, and that service is internet and all of
That's internet for the whole library.
Yes. Is that normally what the fee is on a month-to-month basis?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It's expensive because you have a wide, what's it called, Jason? Memory band? Can you answer that?
Yeah, I can answer it.
Thank you.
It's a dedicated connection from Time Warner, and it's a metro connection. It's a secure connection back from the library back to City Hall. And that costs us around $3,000 a month. It's a 200 megabit connection, megabyte per second. So it's a fast internet connection that we could provide our citizens in the public for free Wi-Fi, for Wi-Fi access when they're in the library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions the council has? Are there any questions from the audience? We have then approval on a motion for item 1. 2 has been pulled. 3 has been postponed. 3A, 4 and 5. Steve, do you care to comment on 3A before we?
No, I can comment about it, and then we can discuss it.
Well,
Comment on 3A.
are there, well, I think I've already asked the public if there's any comments.
Well, they may have some after I talk. They won't understand what I'm saying.
Okay. but
So
we're gonna-
3A has to do with the Senate Bill 1102, and the city manager touched upon it. And what that is all about is that we had this particular senator up in Northern California who's come up with this bright idea that the state should take over the regulation of TOT collection by online short-term, or we call them vacation rental companies. So they want to take that authority away from the cities to do that. In fact, a lot of cities have entered into agreements with a lot of these online providers, and there's been no issue with it. So the concern is, on behalf of the cities, is that that's basically going to take local control over that issue away from the cities. And one of the big concerns is that the language in that particular bill is very convoluted, very complex, because they're using a lot of technical jargon that's used by these online service providers rather than the kind of language and vocabulary that we're used to on the city side. And so because the legislation, the proposed legislation is pretty vague, there is concern that the state, once this bill is adopted, the state will assume total control over this particular issue, which will allow them to start processing or collecting TOT or having TOT pass through the state and imposing some sort of administrative costs on the cities. And so that's the primary concern right now. And the mayor appeared on KSQ on Tuesday, and that actually sparked a lot of discussion about this issue. And so I think at this point, based on the current version of this bill, it's my recommendation that the City Council oppose it through the adoption of this resolution.
Steve, just for your information, I saw on the news that the person in question is stating there will be no cost to the cities for handling this, which I find unbelievable.
Well,
They're doing this out of the goodness of their heart.
We have heard that on other issues as well. We've spent a lot of time on this. This council has instituted a number of safeguards. Through our council, we've defended our position in court, and it's been supported. So we have every intention to maintain our independence, and therefore we will take a opposing position. Based upon what you've heard now, are there any additional questions that council might have? Any other comments? No. Are there any other questions from the audience? That being said, on the consent calendar, I will call for a motion on items 1, 3A, 4, and 5.
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. Those items are approved, and I now will go back to consent item number 2, which is the approval of resolution number 2016. And Councilmember Hobart, I think you had, or
Well, I think that we should probably have either Randy or
Randy,
Britt to go through it and explain it, and then I'll have some issues.
Thank you. I'd be happy to. So back in 2008, AB 811 was signed into law, and it authorizes the cities to designate areas to allow for the free and willing property owners that might want to enter into voluntary contractual assessments to finance energy efficiency programs. Basically, it's called a PACE program, which is Property Assessed Clean Energy. There are 2 companies that operate now in the city of Rancho Mirage and throughout California, Y-Green and Hero programs. Y-Green primarily concentrates on energy efficiency improvements in residential areas, and Hero finances commercial improvements, solar installation and other things like that. This one that's on the agenda today is California First, and they offer assistance to homeowners associations, and there are several homeowners associations in the city of Rancho Mirage that would like to take advantage of this program. This program has been approved through the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, and there is a statewide organization that has consumer protection controls over these, over them for interest rates and loan-to-value ratios and other items. So we've had probably 140 permits, I think, is what Isaiah told me earlier today, that have taken advantage of single-family homes and commercial properties to save energy, save money, and obviously help protect the environment. So what's on your agenda today is a request to adopt a resolution so California First can be the 3rd PACE provider in the city of Rancho Mirage. And they have representatives here today, and we also have representatives here from one of the country clubs that have been waiting to for the city to approve this program so they can help their bottom line financially. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Randy. Questions from the council? Any comments?
Yes, I do. If we pass this, in one of these sentences here, it says this will cover all additional ones coming in the future, so that we do not have to go through this every time somebody applies in this paragraph on page 2-2.
Thank you, Councilmember Townsend. That is correct. Under the California, you can see I got to spell the word out here because it's a long name. The California Statewide Communities Development Authority, their open PACE program. They have several providers. California First is one of the programs under that. So they have other programs under that, other providers. If those come, they will be approved at the CVAG level. But if some other PACE program were to come with something else, it may require a future resolution. But under this program, you will not need to come back again with a resolution.
Thank you, Brett. I have one more question as far as the interest rates on this. What I read was it goes for the current rate at the application of the interest at the time. So there is no 3%, 4%, 8%, or anything like that stated anywhere that I've seen.
Yeah, so the interest rates are dictated by market rates. So whatever the market rates are at that time, that's what it is based off of. Currently, the range for the shorter term loans are somewhere around 6-7% interest, and as for the longer term loans, they're about 8-9% interest.
Thank you. That's it.
If I may, what is a short-term rental or rate, I should say, Isaiah?
5-year term.
Maximum 5 years. Thereafter, it jumps to 8 to 9% roughly.
Yeah, so you can choose to take out a 5-year loan, so the cost of that improvement will be repaid over 5 years, or you can get into longer term loans. The Y-Green program offers a 30-year loan, which is where you would see the higher interest rates, and the Hero program offers a 20-year loan.
The somewhere we heard stated that CVAG supervises this program, as well as the other 2 PACE programs, Y-Green and Heroes. I've got kind of a odd feeling about all of this because at the last CVAG meeting, there was an issue on the ballot, on the agenda, that had, was it the synchronization agenda? Was that what it was? Yeah, the signal.
Yes, it was.
They had an issue concerning signalization projects and studies that they wanted to engage in throughout the valley, and the cost for that initial examination of the issue or whatever it was, specifically I've forgotten, they said that they were going to use PACE repayment monies. PACE repayment monies were funds that they were referring to the two prior PACE programs, the White, Green, and Heroes, that CVAG had put time and manpower into that and determined that that was worth or valued of, let's just say, $100,000. I have no idea if it was 1,000 or 200,000, but let me just use that as an example. So out of those PACE programs, those two programs, CVAG is entitled to get back the repayment funds from that PACE, those PACE programs. Was that what it was? Yeah, it wasn't synchronization. It was community choice aggravation, having to do with finding alternative sources to aggregate electricity other than Edison. That's what the issue was. So it did not have to do with the signal synchronization issues, but it all amounts to the same thing as far as we're concerned here with respect to the use of that PACE funds. They were going to use, and in the motion that they had prepared, they were having the PACE repayment program monies being spent on this community aggregation of electricity program. We raised the issue that that was an illegal use of the PACE program monies, and that stopped it for the moment because there was a motion made to test the legality of that. We feel very confident that it's not legal to use the PACE money to fund another type of project completely independent of the electricity issues. Strike that, completely independent of the PACE issues. So we start with the problem of CVAG being credible with respect to its oversight. That's one issue that we can't solve today, but it's an issue that I think should be raised and should be public for people to know about. One of the other issues is, and I'm hoping that the representative from California First will be able to discuss this with us. One of the other issues is, what is the interest rate they're going to be charging currently for residential and non-residential properties? What is it based on, that interest rate? How can it be changed or modified so that people who, once they've got one of these contracts, does it have modification potential, upward or downward in it? So that's one thing that I would like to know. Under the PACE program and under this program, that if a homeowner decides to put solar energy, solar panels on his or her house, they can borrow the money from these various companies, now including California First, if we pass this. They can borrow the money to pay for the panels, and thereafter, that debt is placed on their property tax billings, and that when the property taxes are paid each year, a certain sum from the amount that's now being paid, including whatever the PACE program has added to it, that money is sent to the company without having to have collection issues or anything of that nature, which is an ideal situation for any lender. But what happens if the owner wants to sell the house? The question I have is this. With the energy provider, with the PACE provider, do they have the right to prevent a homeowner from going forward with the sale if the PACE provider does not agree that the new buyer is an adequate or adequately funded purchaser of the home? Could they interrupt? Do they have the authority? And I'm asking the Cal First person not to forget to answer that question when it comes up. But do they have the power to prevent a homeowner from selling his house because of the contract the sellers had to enter into with the provider of the money to purchase the solar panels? I think I mentioned, but I'll mention again because I see my other note on it. As far as the interest rates, how do those interest rates get established and get modified?
Sure. So my name is Jeremy Hutman. I'm the regional director with the California First PACE program. We are sponsored by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, which was created by the League of California Cities and the State Association of Counties. The interest rates for our program are generally tied to U.S. Treasuries loosely. We have several consumer protections in place with our interest rates.
Is that the end of what you were going to say about they're generally tied to interest?
They're generally tied, and it's also based on market. So this is actually one of the reasons why it's so important to have competition when it comes to PACE. What competition actually does in the marketplace when there's multiple programs operating side by side, that actually creates a downward pressure on interest rates. So the trend in PACE, as more programs come into the marketplace, is to create this downward pressure, and rates have been dropping.
Is that for new applicants, or is that for existing applicants as well? Existing members.
Oh, sure. So the interest rates themselves are fixed, and this is another consumer protection with PACE. We don't have variable interest rates, so they can't spike over time and they don't decrease over time.
They're fixed again.
Yeah.
State the formula for how they're fixed.
Oh, sure. They're fixed when a property owner, the interest rate is tied to the term of the PACE assessment, whether it's any term up from 5 to 25 years in 5-year increments. So a 5-year term has a certain interest rate, a 25-year term has a certain interest rate. Once a property owner chooses their term and goes forward with the financing.
Let's say it's 25 years today, yeah. What would that rate be?
It would be 8.39%. And
if it was 5 years?
It was 5 years, 6.75%. And the interest rate is then locked at that point. So the property owner doesn't have to worry about the interest rate spiking. Like with a home equity line of credit, for example, that's a variable interest rate. So if a property owner wants to do a HELOC, for example, to finance something, they do have to worry about the interest rate fluctuating during the course of their repayment. With PACE, it is fixed. But another consumer protection that we have in place.
Well, hang on before you go to the next consumer protection. Let's stick with the consumer problem here. You can get a first trust deed for what, 3.75 to 4% nowadays on a house loan, 20, 30 years. How do you justify 8 point whatever that number was for a 25-year loan that's guaranteed? That's question one. And then don't forget to answer question two, which is, do you have to approve of the buyer of the home?
Sure. So I'll go through all of that. One, when you're talking about the 3 or 4% interest rates associated with banks, and those are generally with home equity lines of credit. And home equity lines of credit. The reason
I'm talking about mortgages, first mortgages.
Oh, the first mortgages.
Lines of credit.
So the first mortgages, that's just the general mortgage market, and people don't use mortgages to finance solar.
No, of course not. But why is the interest rate more than double for something that's as highly protected as your program is?
Oh, it's typically it's a new program that's out in the marketplace, and it's consistent with other types of financing. It's more comparable to a second on a home. When you look at a second with a home equity loan with a fixed rate, you're looking more in the 6% rate, and that's what's currently available out in the marketplace. Then when you're talking about variable rates with the like I said, with the home equity lines of credit, that's more, it's in the lower range right now, but it does fluctuate, and the property owner doesn't have the protection of a fixed interest rate with a home equity line of credit. So it is consistent right now with what you're finding with fixed interest rates in the 20-year range, which would be a home equity loan. And that's currently what is available out in the marketplace. So another thing that we have with PACE is that we don't have any prepayment penalties. So if a property owner does a PACE assessment and they get a 20-year term, they're not locked into that term the entire time. They can easily, if they want to ultimately get some other type of financing to pay off the PACE loan, they can do that, and there's no penalty to do that.
At any time without so many years of waiting or anything
Exactly. There's no penalty. If they want to do it the second day, they can do that, and there's no penalty. So we really are trying to create a new opportunity for property owners out in the marketplace. And what's best for all communities is to have as many options out in the marketplace as possible, because there is no financing that's one size fits all. PACE isn't the solution for every property owner, but about 70,000 property owners throughout the state have looked at all their financing options and selected PACE as their best option. So we just want to provide another tool for property owners, because they want to have choices and they want to have opportunities.
Well, one of the reasons that they pick PACE is because PACE sells the fact that the cities have supported it.
Oh,
and that makes it easy for a buyer to rely on the integrity of the cities. But if the cities aren't putting some pressure on you to give them the best deal possible, rather than your straight out of the box 8.5 or whatever percent, then we're not doing much for the residents of our cities.
Sure.
So they're relying on us to some extent in sort of approving of the practices of these lending companies of the PACE program.
Oh, absolutely. And what cities can do. So first of all, we don't present ourselves as a program of the individual city. We're a program of the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, and that's actually one way we protect the cities, because this isn't specifically a city program. It's a public-private partnership. And what cities are doing right now in order to help property owners by reducing the interest rate is enabling competition. Because what the competition does is, when there's multiple PACE programs operating in the marketplace, it forces us to improve our services for the property owners.
But not lower your rate.
No, and that's exactly what it does. So the way we compete in the marketplace, because we're going to compete against Hero and we're going to compete against Y-Green, and the way we're going to do that is by reducing our interest rates and improving our services. And it's going to force all of the programs to do the same thing. The same thing that's why you have competition for all types of...
Y-Green right now is, if I'm wrong, correct me, 7-point-something%.
Well, they all vary based on the term, and so we take into account what other programs are offering.
What is your understanding of Y-Green's current rate is?
Oh, I'm not sure what their current rate is.
Well, I heard 2 weeks ago at that CVAG meeting, it was 7-point-something%.
Sure. So they have.
Why would you be a point higher?
Oh, well, so it depends on their term. And they may have, let's say, for example, they have a 5-year term that's a certain rate and a 20-year term that's a certain rate. Ours will be roughly comparable all the way through, but this is also why you want to provide choices and options for property owners, because they're going to decide with their contract, and once they've decided, let's say, to buy a solar system, they're going to decide how long they want to take to pay that back. And let's say they are deciding between 5 years and 10 years. And they're going to look at all of the PACE programs and see the terms associated for all of the programs at 5 years. And let's say at 5 years, Y-Green offers a better option than California First, but at 10 years, our rate is a little bit lower. So that way, the property owner can choose between the different programs and see, for the term that they want, they'll choose the program that offers the best interest rate. And that's why it's important to have as many options out in the marketplace as possible.
Do your interest rates ever exceed 8 or 8.5%, depending upon the creditworthiness of the borrower?
No, the underwriting is based on equity in the property, and that's one of the nuances of PACE financing. So it doesn't vary based on credit. And then actually, talking about credit, I'd like to get to Councilmember Hobart's second point, which was wondering about if a property is going to transfer, if there's any issues with PACE financing being attached. Will we prevent a transaction from happening? And the answer is no. And this is something that's actually more common in solar leases, and I think that's probably what you had heard.
You say you won't interfere with the transaction completing. Does that mean that automatically the new buyer assumes the loan that you have on the property?
If they choose to assume it. So
if they choose to, and if they don't choose to, what happens?
Then several options can happen. And PACE, one of the good things about PACE is that there's a lot of options. It was actually designed to transfer from one property one property owner to the next, the same way all special assessments and special taxes are for properties. So property owners have multiple options at that point. Everything during escrow is a negotiation. If the buyer requests that the PACE lien be settled beforehand, the property or the seller can pay off the PACE lien, use the proceeds from the sale in escrow to pay off the PACE lien with no prepayment penalty. So that way it won't transfer from one property owner to the other. If both parties agree that they'll allow the PACE assessment to transfer, then it legally can, and that's the structure
And
of
does
the
the
PACE
new owner
program.
take it over at the same rates, or does it start with the new loan?
No, so they would just pick up the payments right where the other property owner left off at the exact same rate. But they also have the
And you
opportunity.
don't have to approve that person?
No, as long as they are the new owner of the property, then they'll just assume the rates. And PACE is transferred. Like I said, there's been 70,000 transactions. There's been several thousand properties that PACE assessment that are transferred to a new property owner. It's really functioning just as designed. And so new property owners will pick up the payments, but then they'll also have the energy efficient or water saving or renewable energy upgrade on the property as well, so their energy bills will be lower. So PACE, we're really excited about how this program is working, not just for homeowners, but also for commercial property owners, for country clubs, for businesses. This is, it's really
Do you
taking
charge a country club a different price for residential properties within the country club compared to clubhouses and other non-residential properties?
Yeah, and so that's another really exciting thing about PACE is that there's two separate structures.
Excite me and tell me how.
Yes, okay, this is what's exciting about the about commercial PACE. With residential PACE, because there's such a high volume of PACE transactions, we have one lender. We're the lender for that. We set the interest rates. For commercial property owners, and one of the reasons why the commercial property owners in Rancho Mirage are very excited about using California First is because we allow property owners to use their own lenders, and this is something a lot of commercial property owners have a history of working with a specific bank or a specific credit union, and they want to be able to use that lender as well for their PACE transactions. So we have what's called an open program, where a country club or any other type of business can come with their lender who sets their interest rates and sets all the terms for the PACE assessment and use the California First program. So they're using PACE, they're using the California First mechanism, but they're getting their interest rate and they're getting their capital from a lender that they've worked with for a long time.
What is the current rate for the commercial part?
It varies based on the lender. So a property owner...
Oh, based on your company?
Oh, it can be anywhere from around 6% for 20 years. But it really depends. Every transaction...
You're saying that a clubhouse could be the solar panels, the money paying for the solar panels on a clubhouse could be as low, from your company today, could be as low as 6%, while the residential houses will be 8.5%.
It could be, yeah. It just depends. For commercial, it is generally a little bit lower than residential. But there's also just a lot of flexibility within the commercial program as well. So our goal...
Flexibility downward or always upward?
Well, no, it's actually much more open in the commercial program, just because the transactions take a little bit longer. They're a little bit more complex. But a property owner, let's say I'm property owner A, and I want to find...
Let me understand when you use words that I hear in different contexts.
Oh, sure.
When you say the payments are compressed with respect to commercial property, does that mean that the term of the loan on commercial properties is a shorter term, a mandatory shorter term than the maximum residential property would be?
Sure. So it's not that the terms are compressed. It's that the transactions, the actual PACE deals, are more complex. It's a much larger transaction for commercial. So they do still have the same flexibility, or actually they have more flexibility. It's whatever their lender. Whatever deal they work out with their lender. So if they're using a local bank or a local credit union, they can work out the term. And it can be 5 years, it can be 20 years. It's whatever they choose. So there is a lot more flexibility with the commercial program.
I'm missing a point, I think, but you're alluding to it. Let's say that I own a house at Sunrise Country Club. And the value of that house is, say, $300,000, and I have a mortgage on it, and I'm paying that off. I now decide I want to put solar panels on there. I come to you. I want to have your plan. Does the term that I'm going to get with you have to coincide with the, say, the end of the 30-year fixed loan I have on that property? Or do you establish... Can you establish 30 years and have it extend past the date of the the termination of the mortgage?
Oh, so it's not related to how much time is left on the mortgage. The only thing that we're looking at is how much equity the property owner has, because we don't want anybody to be underwater after using a PACE lien. So it's actually been set at the statewide level. The California Treasury has set guidelines for PACE, and so we can't finance anything above 100%, but we don't look at exactly how much time is left on the mortgage itself. A property owner has the ability to choose, and that's really, we want to provide as flexible a program as possible. So a property owner will look at their interest rates, they'll kind of work all the financing out with their contractor, decide how much they want to pay monthly, how fast they want to pay off the PACE assessment, and they can choose if they want to choose a 5-year, a 10-year, a 15-year, or up to a 25-year for solar. They have that ability to choose.
Name offhand, if you would, 3 or 4 other homeowner associations in California that just come to your mind that you have contracts with.
Oh, sure. So I think that we should back up a little bit. We don't work solely with homeowners associations. So California First is actually for all types of properties. We do residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial.
When you do it inside of a homeowner association, you have to have homeowner association approval for it, don't you?
So that's just for the what's it called? Just for the common areas. For individual property owners, if they're in an HOA, then whatever rules for the HOA would apply. There are certain protections with California law regarding solar. I think there's solar access laws.
Well, most HOAs, if they're going to, the residents of HOAs want to have uniformity in the styles and in the types of
so we would fit in. We would fit in whatever the rules established by the homeowners association.
So
they would
what
follow
are a
the same.
few of the HOAs that you identify with pride for having your projects?
Oh, sure. I can't think of any off the top of my head, specific homeowners associations. We've done over 10,000 projects around the state.
You're talking about individual homes?
Yeah, we're talking about individual homes that happen to be in a homeowners association.
Would this be your first HOA project?
No, I'm sure that we've done a bunch more throughout the state, and this would be. I think that the projects in Rancho Mirage are for the common areas in homeowners associations, not for the individual homes.
But you do both.
Yeah, we would allow.
So you do the common areas if they wanted, and if homeowners wanted to use your services, you would be available for them.
Exactly. And so the homeowners would be under the residential portion of the program, and the common areas for an HOA would be under the commercial side, but everybody would be allowed.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
Firsthand, HOAs do not have the authority to say you can't put those panels here or there. I just went through that.
Okay.
So there was a ruling that the HOAs, again, I repeat, have no authority if they want to place them on the front of the house, on the side of the house, wherever. The HOA has no authority on that. Next, where are you with funding for FHA loans?
For FHA loans, so they're in the same boat. Any government-backed entity has basically provided guidance to lenders that they may need to pay off the loan midway through. There's actually a lot of talk in Washington, D.C. right now about FHA coming out with guidelines upcoming. But what we're doing in order to address that is we'll subordinate at any point. If a property owner is trying to sell and FHA or FHFA, any government agency requests that the PACE lien be settled because they don't want to have the senior lien, then we'll subordinate. And this is a new consumer protection that's just been put in place for most PACE programs now. And so it allows property owners to transfer from one property owner to the next without any issues from FHA.
Okay. So to go back to my first question, do you concede that the HOAs have no restriction?
Yeah, I mean, I don't make the rules for that. It's whatever they want to do and whatever they decide. I believe that in California, because of the solar access law, HOAs can't stop someone.
But
I'm not an expert.
To make that clear.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not an expert in that, so I can't testify on that. I am. Fantastic. So yeah, it's yeah.
Let me ask you a question about the installation of the solar panels. Is that something that the HOA or the owner of the residence does on his or her own, or do you, A, approve of the panel installer, B, do you name two or three panel installers that they can use, that they're limited to using? How does that work?
In our program, and I believe this is true for most PACE programs, we approve the contractors that are participating in the program.
You pick the contractor?
Well, no, we don't pick them. Contractors have to meet certain guidelines. So contractors have to meet certain guidelines, and so if a property owner wants to use a specific contractor, if they're not already participating in California First, then they have to do some training. And as long as they meet basic standards, meaning that they have a CSLB license, they're bonded, they're insured, they're in good standing in the community, we actually do that on behalf of property owners. So property owners can use whatever contractor they want, but we're not going to allow a property owner to use a contractor that isn't licensed, and that's a protection we have for property owners.
My observation has been that some of these solar companies that advertise that they will put solar on your houses, and they do the financing, I guess, or you pay them off and do financing with the bank, whatever, is that most of them, if not all of them, and I don't know, seem to be, they pick somebody that they use regularly to put on the solar panels. So company A hires company B to put them on. Company B later goes bankrupt. The solar panels fail for some reason that they shouldn't be failing, and B is gone. A says, well, B put it on. How do you protect yourself, and how do you protect the homeowner or the property owner?
So that's through our contractor vetting process, and we make sure any contractor that's working with us, like I said, is registered and is actually doing the work themselves. We also do on-site verification for a certain amount of projects. We also make sure that the contractors have been in business for at least over a year. So we don't have new fly-by-night contractors working in California.
1 year?
I think that's the very minimum. And most of our contractors.
You're right. That's
and we're talking bare minimum. So things that we do that you wouldn't find with other type of financing. We're built from the ground up to deal specifically with efficiency financing, and we have everything in house to actually deal with that. And I'll give.
But you don't stand economically behind those who install the panels, do you?
We don't have any. We don't worry about who is doing.
But you pick them. Well, but if they should go bankrupt, that's the homeowner's
Oh, sorry, we
problem.
don't pick them. We approve them. If the property owner chooses the contractor that they want to work with, all that we'll do is a background check on their contractor to make sure that they are qualified to actually do the financing under our program, and then we'll also provide additional oversight for that contractor. If the contractor isn't doing things right, if they have a history of any type of legal action or anything like that, they won't qualify in the first place.
Do they have to be bonded?
Yes, they have to be licensed, bonded, and insured.
To what extent are they bonded and insured? To the extent of the business they do, or just some relatively low number?
No, for the California State Contractors Board, the CSLB, the CSLB. The state sets the standards for licensing, bonding, and insuring. And we make sure that every contractor participating in California First meets those standards at least. And then we also do additional background checks on that contractor. So the property owner not only has the knowledge that their contractor is actually going through everything, doing everything the right way, we also make sure that the appropriate permits are pulled for every project. So we don't have unpermitted projects actually getting funded through California First. And this is actually a common issue through all communities where you have contractors doing unpermitted work. And so we make sure there's no project that'll go through California First that doesn't get a permit pulled. Then we'll also make sure if there's any issues that the property owner has with the project that's happened, we'll make sure that that everything is settled afterwards. A situation that just happened was a property owner had solar installed in their home. And everything was fine. They signed their completion certificate, which means that then we can actually pay the contractor. After that, every time the homeowner turned on their washing machine, the whole house went dark. And so they called the contractor. The contractor said, "Hey, you said everything was good. We're done." And then the homeowner was kind of stuck. So they called us because they used California First Financing. We sent out a third-party inspector, an expert in home electrical systems, to look at the wiring and just figure out what actually happened.
How many times have you done that throughout Southern California?
It's a regular occurrence. We have a whole team that deals with this. We found out that it was the contractor's fault, and we called the contractor on it, told them that they have to fix this or they're out of the program.
Suppose they were out of business. How would you handle that?
The contractor, this happened right after the installation. So contractors, with PACE, contractors want to be able to offer as many options to their property owners as possible, and they really value.
You know how fast these LLCs come into business and go out of business, and people think that they're protected by as a company or corporation. It's been in business 2 years. These things go in and out of business, like blinking your eyes.
Sure, and so we can offer additional protection to the property owner by doing this background vetting. We haven't had we have over 1,200 contractors in our program, and we've never had that issue with any of our contractors because of the background work and the ongoing training.
Over how many years?
We've been working since the middle of 2014. And so we've had more and more contractors join, and this is something that we add this additional layer of protection for property owners, where we have one-on-one relationships with all the contractors that are participating. We have people on the ground in the communities working with the contractors to make sure they're trained. We have ongoing vetting of the contractors. This is there's a lot more that we offer than what's traditionally available out in the community.
Well, let me just finish the points that I was going to make. I just wanted to raise these issues, not to give you any particular problem, but to point out that essentially cities in CVAG, to say that CVAG is overseeing the HERO and the White Greens project, and I assume that this will somehow go eventually under CVAG's authority as well.
We already are under, and that's why
we're already there.
We're already here today. So CVAG also provides the local oversight of our program.
No offense to CVAG, but it's like the fox being in charge of the chicken pen. They're not, I know, based on what I've seen, they're not paying much attention to it. Not as much as I think they should, let's put it that way. And here in our own motions that we're dealing with, it says, whereas the city desires to allow the owners of property within its territory to participate in the programs and to allow the authority to conduct assessment proceedings under Chapter 29 within its territory and to issue bonds to finance or refinance improvements. And then it says the city will not be responsible for the conduct of any assessment proceedings, the levy of assessments, any required remedial action, in the case of delinquencies in such assessments, or in the issuance, sale, or administration of any bonds issued in connection with the programs. So on the one hand, we're saying we're encouraging it. On the other hand, we're saying, yeah, but if you guys screw up, don't come looking to us. We want the public to know they can't come looking to us. We should make that clear to them up front, and I don't think we've done a good job of that, frankly. I think the people think that once the city has given its imprimatur, there we go, on these programs, they sort of think that we're behind them, and we're not. And it's
and that's part of our consumer protection policy. We have very specific guidelines for contractors not to represent the program as a program of the city. So they would what they're supposed to say, and we actually monitor this, is to make sure that they say this is a program of the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, the largest joint powers authority in the state, and this has been allowed by the city council, but this is not a program of the city of Rancho Mirage. And so they won't represent the program that way. And if they do and we catch them doing that, then we have the ability to kick them out of the program. So another item is we know that we're serving at your pleasure in the community. You're gonna you can pass a resolution to allow us into the community, and we'll do we'll implement the program to the highest standards. And you also can opt out of the program too. If you're not happy with the way we're operating in the community, you can pass a resolution the same way today to opt out of the program. We know that so that we hold ourselves to the highest standard possible because we're serving at your pleasure. You can kick us out the same way you bring us in.
Thank you.
Steve, would you like to make a comment?
I just wanted to comment about the reference to HOAs. Councilmember Townsend's correct. HOAs have very limited authority on regulating the placement or design of solar panels in a gated community. It's specifically under the Solar Rights Act, under Civil Code Section 714. It provides, and this applies to both HOAs and cities, we can only place reasonable restrictions on the installation of solar systems. And reasonable means that if the regulation is going to increase the cost of the installation by 10% or $1,000, that's considered to be unreasonable, so you can't do that. Or if the regulation is going to decrease the efficiency of the solar system by 10%, then you can't do that. But HOAs can impose just reasonable regulations, restrictions.
Right, and also, Steve, the City Hall cannot refuse any application.
That's correct, even
Make
without HOA
everybody's
approval.
sure that they understand that.
Well, that's a state issue. We have a request for from the public. Dave Scone, if you would. I think that Dave Scone is from Sunrise, and he can comment about what he feels are the representations that have been made to him and his entity a little clearer, if you would.
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm the immediate past president of Sunrise Country Club, and we've been working on our solar project for a little more than a year now, and it's been a complicated in trying to understand how the process works. And I think we're to the end of it if you so decide to pass this resolution. Approval of California First PACE program provider will be an integral part of our conversion to solar energy. And as you know, club operating and maintenance costs are continuing to rise. With the conversion of solar energy, we can cut our energy costs by a projected $3 to $4 million over the next 20 years. So it's very significant for us. We are continually challenged on the revenue side of our operation, and just as the city does not like to raise taxes, we do our best to keep our dues at a minimum. The savings will be very significant to our bottom line. Sunrise will be the first private country club to finance a solar project through the PACE program. And I think that speaks well for the council's wisdom and the city of Rancho Mirage as a whole. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that I can.
I think you can appreciate the questions that have been asked by Councilman Hobart. And our concern is for your protection.
Right.
And that essentially is where we're coming from, that as a city, we recognize it's our fiduciary responsibility to protect our residents, certainly you being one of them. So we don't want you to be getting involved in anything that isn't very clear, that could impact you, and of course, likewise, impact the reputation of the city. So that's the direction we're going. I want to make it clear, we're not looking for reasons not to do this, but on the other hand, we feel that it's incumbent upon us to point out any potential flaws.
No, I respect that. That serves us well.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. The program that you're working with right now is which one?
We're hoping to work with California First. We've dealt with Hero, and they have put together terms that were not acceptable, and they were restricting the size of our solar system, which would, keep our costs higher than what it could be if they allowed better rates.
So you've been involved in doing the process for over a year. Where do you think the biggest problem has come from?
Well, the biggest problem has been the appraisal. And that's a curveball for anybody investing in our club, is that these guys have not appraised country clubs, private country clubs before.
Appraising of what part? The value of the club or the cost of the paneling?
The value of the club.
I see.
Which determines how much they're willing to invest in the project. I was told today by our project coordinator that our appraisal came in at a good number, and they've done all their due diligence on it. We've had, I think, 3 appraisals, and they just haven't come to fruition. But what's the name of there's a reputable national real estate firm did an appraisal and did the due diligence behind it, so I think we're in good shape.
So with that value coming in at an acceptable level, can you go ahead now with your project?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, a couple of questions actually from the representative from the California First. First of all, are there any upfront fees for the property owners?
Yes, there are.
Can you kind of tell us what those might be?
Oh, sure. So there is there's a closing cost, which is approximately 6.4%, and then there's a one-time lien recording fee that the county sets that price, and an annual assessment fee of about $30 or so. And so all of that is wrapped up into the financing itself. It's disclosed. We have a document that follows the spirit of the Truth in Lending Act that lists all of the fees for the property owner, so they can see everything that's associated with it, and also the full amortization schedule, and then they can make the decision to move forward. But we have everything that's very clear and transparent for the property owner.
Okay. And my second question is, as a scenario that might occur, the property owner decides to use some solar panels. He sells the property to the new owner, at which time the new owner finds that he has some roofing problems and needs some new roofing areas put on, and decides not to continue with the solar project. How is that handled then?
Sure. So this is an ownership model versus a third-party model, and I think that what you were alluding to is if there's a third party that owns the system, and this would be a solar lease or solar PPA, that would be something that would be discussed at that point. This is an ownership model, the same way as if they're paying cash, they own the solar system, so they can't. It's not something that they can give back or return, but it's also something that they actually own, and it's an asset on the property rather than a liability. So, so in that case, it's the property owner's own solar system. They can do whatever they want with it.
Okay, so if they purchase the home and there's still payments due on the solar project, then they're going to be responsible for that solar project no matter what.
Yeah, it's their solar system. So they would and they would know that going in. It's a negotiation point during escrow. So they would make the conscious decision and know all the whatever the issues could be. They would be fully aware of it, and they would make the decision being fully informed.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
You had mentioned that homeowner associations can use their own financing, their own banks, if they want to. So if they can do that and they can then choose their own solar installation company, why do they need you?
Well, they would need us to actually do the PACE assessment itself. So they would get the financing from the actual capital would come from the bank or the credit union or whoever their financer is, and then they would use us as the mechanism to secure it to the property, and you do the actual PACE assessment. So they would use California First PACE program, but whatever lender they're using. So we're not the lender on that at that point. We're just the program administrator.
So you're like a facilitator also?
Exactly. So we're the facilitator, and this is because we just provide more options and more flexibility for property owners.
Exactly.
What percentage of them are you the administrator versus the originator?
I would say for commercial, it's about half and half. I don't have the exact numbers, but it's somewhere in that. And once again, this is all property owner choice. For residential, it's 100%, just because the residential transactions happen so quickly that we just don't have time in a traditional cycle for property owners to bring in their own lenders. It may ultimately get that way. PACE has been developing for a long time, and new models are always coming in. And like I said, we're always competing to come in with the best options for property owners. But currently, it is for residential. There's one lender for each individual program.
And so what kind of fee would you get as a facilitator?
Sure. So we would get a portion of the closing costs.
And that would be about how much?
It's for commercial, I want to say it's capped at 4%, but we would just get a portion of that. I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm happy to get you all of that information.
Okay.
But once again, I mean, this is a public-private partnership, so we are transparent, and all the numbers are available.
Okay, thank you.
Richard, did you have a question?
Yes, just briefly getting back to rates for a second. Do you have a floor or a ceiling rate on the program?
There isn't a floor or a ceiling. It's it's just the current fixed rates, and the more competition there is out in the marketplace, there'll be a downward pressure.
So when you were talking about rates before, you were in the 8.5, 8.75 rate.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a fairly high base established at that point then? And so there's just a small adjustment depending on the length of the loan?
Yeah, so it starts at 6.75%, and then the property owner decides the term that they want and the associated interest rate. And usually what they do is they'll look at what the monthly payments are in relation to the amount that they're going to be saving on their energy bills. The ideal situation for solar is where you can get a loan that's long enough, has a long enough payback period, where your monthly payments are lower than the amount you're saving on your energy bill, so you're cash flow positive from the beginning. And that's what most of the commercial property owners are doing. They're trying to cash flow these solar projects, and so if you can get the longer rate, then you can have low enough monthly payments where the projects make sense.
So is it possible to have rates in the 5 to 6% range?
Yeah, it's ultimately possible that they'll get down that way, and what it'll take is more competition. Like for any type of loan product, if you only had one lender offering auto loans locally, their rates would be sky high because there wouldn't be any competition for them. If you bring in a lot of different companies offering auto loans, their rates are going to go down because they're going to want to compete for business, and we'll do the same thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do. Back to page 2-2, paragraph 3. I just want to make it perfectly clear that when we approve this, we are opening the doors to all other companies that come in, and you or they will not have to come and stand here and go through this. Am I correct?
Yes and no, unfortunately. So for CSCDA, our program sponsor, there are 3 or 4 other programs under the CSCDA umbrella. And what CVAG has done is they've created an agreement. The resolution that you all will be passing will cover all other open PACE programs, provided that they have the same oversight and same agreement with CVAG. Now, I can't speak for other programs out in the marketplace because there are other sponsors, but this will at least cover you for CSCDA programs.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Are there any other questions from the audience? If none, I will ask for a motion regarding item 2, approval of resolution number 2016. Is there a motion?
I thought you were going to do it.
No, I thought you were.
Oh, well, I don't have it up here. So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Please vote.
I'm assuming when I voted that the so moved refers to adopting the resolution consenting to the inclusion of properties within the territory of the city of Rancho Mirage in the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, et cetera.
That's correct.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Motion is approved, 5-0. Next item is the CV link update. Is there anything, Dana?
Nothing in particular. I did observe one thing at the last CVAG meeting. They seem to have stopped on their agenda the process of having a CV link update, so that now CVAG is at least one meeting in a row has a new policy of not bringing us up to date on what's going on with CVAG and the CV link.
All right, item Number 7, approval of resolution number 2016. Isaiah Hagerman, our Director of Administrative Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, this item is before you at from the request of Eisenhower Medical Center. This is what is referred to as a TEFRA hearing. It is the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. Eisenhower Medical Center is in the process of refinancing some existing debt that is tax exempt. In order for them to complete their process, the city has to take several steps, which is what the approval of the resolution does. And we also have to conduct a public hearing so that members of the public has an opportunity to speak on this item. The resolution before you today authorizes the city to join a JPA, which is the financing mechanism. So in order for that JPA to issue the debt on behalf of Eisenhower, we have to join the JPA. There is absolutely no cost to the city for joining this JPA. In addition, the resolution has us approving of the refunding bonds for Eisenhower Medical Center, and also authorizes the city manager to execute all related documents which will allow Eisenhower Medical Center to continue forward with this refunding. The last TEFRA hearing was performed by the city in 2012, and this is just a standard set requirement in tax law since these are tax-exempt bond proceeds. Essentially, this is Eisenhower Medical Center doing what is prudent and going out into the market to get lower interest rates, which will save them money. So it helps Eisenhower Medical Center. In addition with this, there's no new money being issued, it's just a refinancing. So the recommendation in the staff report is for the City Council to conduct the public hearing and take any public comment, and then to approve the resolution, which will allow Eisenhower Medical Center to continue forward with their process of saving money. Their CFO, Eisenhower Medical Center CFO, Ken Wheat, is in the audience, so if the council does have any questions about the bond refunding, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions, and staff is available as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open up the public hearing on this. Is there any questions from the public regarding this item? All right. Are there questions of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I have one comment, which is on page 7-1, and it does stress in dark print that the EMC bonds to be issued are the sole responsibility of EMC, the borrower, and the city of Rancho Mirage will have no financial, legal, moral obligation, liability of responsibility for the project, or the repayment of the bonds for the financing of the project. It's very important that we are part of the JPA, but we are not the issuer of the bonds, and therefore we are not responsible for payment of principal and interest on these bonds.
Yes, that was made very clear. Excuse
me.
me.
My question to Isaiah would be, assuming you wrote that about us not having financial responsibility, I noticed you added the words, nor do we have any moral obligation. Now, I know in the law that doesn't amount to much, but it did seem like it's sort of a little bit of flour on top of the pie here.
And it did, and that made me laugh as well. Again, when you go through these bond deals, it's tons of attorneys and bond counsels, and that was the language that was provided to me, and that is some of the language that shows up in the official statements.
That's because lawyers don't understand what moral means.
Yeah. You said it. I didn't. Isaiah, do you have any idea what the rating on this bond might be?
I don't. I would have to probably defer to the CFO from Eisenhower Medical Center, Ken.
Okay, thank you.
Bonds are probably BAA.
Yeah, we'll probably find out. Yeah. We're about to find out.
Yes.
Can we give you cash right now? You can get in line and buy some?
Well, we're not, it's going to be individually, privately held, so the bond issue, but they're BAA as our current rating. Obviously, we go through that annually
Yes,
on our
would you
rating
give us your name,
process.
please?
I'm sorry, Ken Wheat. I'm the Chief Financial Officer with Eisenhower Medical Center, and this is
John Stoker, Financial Advisor of the California Municipal Finance Authority.
Thank you.
So, yeah, as Isaiah said, I mean, it's simply a bond refunding. We have an old Series 97B of $22 million that we're going to refund and save a lot of money in the process. Save us about $175,000 a year in interest. So that's all that's going on here. There's no new purchases, no new assets purchased, buildings built, or anything with the funds. It's just a retirement of an old debt issue and reissuing a new one.
When will the reissuing take place?
Well, we're looking to close the middle of June. We have a short-term period in there. We'll carry both because there's a 1% penalty before June 1st payoff. So we'll retire that after July 1st.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the audience? None?
I'd like to move approval of the Eisenhower Medical Center issuing tax-exempt revenue bonds.
Is there a second?
Readopt and approve that resolution?
And readopt and approve the resolution.
And a second.
Second.
Please vote. Motion is approved 5-0. The next item is the approval of the resolution number 2016, Britt Wilson, Management Analyst.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. This is another one of our continuing and periodic annexations into Community Facilities District Number 1. And if you'll turn your eyes to the screen, you will see an aerial view of this particular site, which is the Rancho Las Palmas Shopping Center, with which you are all intimately familiar. And you can tell Google hasn't updated their aerial photos for a few months, but anyway, it's the location. It's down at Highway 111, Magnesia Falls Drive, and Bob Hope Drive. Thank you. The Rancho Las Palmas Shopping Center contains approximately 16 acres. And as of the CFD rates for fiscal year 15-16, the estimated annual revenue based on that would be approximately $48,000 on an annual basis. The expedited process for CFD annexations in the city now allows the developer or applicant to file a petition asking for an expedited time frame for annexation. So your action today, if you approve this resolution, you are accepting their petition for that, waiving the time limits and requesting an initiation of the proceedings for the annexation. You are accepting and preliminarily approving the boundary map for the annexed territory, which shows in your staff report. And you are also setting the date and time for the public hearing as June 2nd, 2016 at 1 p.m. or thereafter in the afternoon. And that would be for the annexation and levy a special tax on this property. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. Are there any questions that council might have? I might mention, if I'm not mistaken, Sean, is this approximately a $48,000 contribution to the district?
Annually, yes.
Annually.
Very good.
Are there any questions from the audience regarding this issue? If none, I will call for a motion.
I will make a motion that the City Council adopt a resolution number 2016 next in order, declaring the city's intention to annex territory to Community Facilities District Number 1 and to levy a special tax therein for additional police and fire services, preliminarily approving a map of the area proposed to be annexed and scheduling a public hearing to consider the annexation and the levy of the special tax for annexation number 170.
Please vote. Motion is approved 5-0. Next item is number 9, approval of the first amended and restated agreement for Pulte Homes. Our city manager, Randy Binder, will present this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see Tom Davis, the Chief Administrative Officer of the Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians, has one foot out the door. He stuck around for 2 hours, and now that we got to this item, it looks like he's leaving. So I'm either shaming you into staying or thanking you for helping us through this, and talk to you later. Thank you, Tom. Okay, so where do we start on this? Pulte Homes has been, Pulte Homes has been working on gaining entitlements to build a 1,200 unit 55 and better adult community on about 320 acres in Section 24 for probably 5 years, maybe longer. The City of Rancho Mirage has a Sphere of Influence subcommittee. This land is in our Sphere of Influence. Staff has been working with our SOI subcommittee for some time. It's Councilman Hobart and Councilwoman Smotrich. The subcommittee and a group of staff members, myself and my department's heads, have met multiple times with Pulte and the tribe and representatives from SCC Holdings, who the tribe is entering to, or the Pulte is entering into an agreement with SCE to purchase the land from. We've met many times over the last couple of years, and we think we're close to an agreement here, and that's why you have a tentative agreement in front of you. Section 24, Josh, can you show Section 24, please? This is, section number 24 is a square mile bounded by Los Alamos, Ramon, Bob Hope on the east, and Dinah Shore on the south. This represents a portion of the easternmost boundary of the Agua Caliente Indian Reservation. The Indian Reservation extends about 34,000 acres from Palm Springs all the way east to Bob Hope Drive. So this is on the eastern boundary of it. About 320 acres, excuse me, I think 420 acres are owned by allottees or allotted to allottees by the federal government, by and large the bottom 2/3, and then another 220 acres or so towards the top in the east are owned in tribal trust, meaning they're owned by the tribe as a whole. So there's two different Indian ownerships here. Pulte is working with the allottees towards the south end of it. The City of Rancho Mirage recognizes and respects the tribe as being a sovereign nation, and that they have the right to review and approve land use entitlements within their reservation boundary. And that's exactly what they have done here. Over the past few years, the tribe approved a square mile specific plan on the entire property and certified a tribal environmental impact statement and a tentative track map for Pulte. Important point I want to make is that the project could be fully built out under the county or the tribal jurisdiction with no input from the city. Yet the city would be called upon to provide public services, and the city would receive all of the impacts to traffic, negative impacts that would occur normally without any benefits to the city. However, for all intents and purposes, the project would appear as if it's part of the City of Rancho Mirage, because Section 24 is in effect a donut. It's surrounded by incorporated land of the city. So we felt that we should do our best to encourage the project to best reflect the city standards, and since it will be built anyhow and has already been approved by the tribe, the city should annex it, collect the development fees, work with the developer, and have the property annexed to the CFD and anything else that provides for ongoing public services, so the project can really be a part of the community and pay its fair share of the cost of the city providing the fine services that we provide. We were optimistic, we have been optimistic the last couple of years that we would be able to annex the entire square mile at once, especially now that the tribe has approved all of the entitlements on the property, or most of the entitlements, I should say. But as it turns out, the tribe does not have any concrete plans at this time to develop the tribal trust land portion of it, which primarily is commercial and mixed-use zoning along Ramon Road and the west side of Bob Hope Drive. So understandably, they are not at a point in time where they're interested in annexing until there's something for them to talk about. Out of respect for the tribe, we told Pulte the city is not interested in partial annexation. What happened then was Pulte went to the county to process their project. The county agreed to process their project, and even though the project site is right in the middle of our sphere of influence, they were happy to begin putting them through their process of new EIRs and everything else that the county would require as part of land use entitlements, which I think the Pulte's been now working with the tribe or the county for a little over a year on that. We have a lot of respect working with the tribe. I have a good relationship with Tom Davis, who's the equivalent of their city manager, and we both have city planning, urban planning backgrounds. We felt it really was best that the city move ahead with Pulte, even though it is considered potentially piecemeal annexation. We talked with our subcommittee about it, and they agree. We want to maintain good relations with the tribe, and we feel this is the best way for Pulte to be a part of the city, pay their fair share for services, and for the city to maintain our working relationship with the tribe, so when they are ready to annex or build something on their property, we can take it to our subcommittee and we can work out a good agreement like we did with the resort casino. Thank you, Councilman Hobart. So back to Pulte. So they're chomping at the bit right now, and they want to get started as soon as possible. The first phase of their project would be right across from the entrance to Weston Mission Hills Resort. This would be a new low to medium density master planned adult community, and their main entrance, their grand entrance, would be right across from the entrance to the Weston. Now we know the Weston has been fighting blow sand problems and drifting sand problems for a long time, and every time I get a chance, or the city, or the general manager gets a chance to talk to the city, he wants to know when's Pulte going in, because that first phase will stabilize the land across from the Weston, enhance the aesthetics, and allow the Weston to flourish, as well as provide a potential for 1,200 times 2 new golf members or social members to Weston Mission Hills, since this project includes a lot of open space but not a golf course in and of itself. So there is an opportunity here for Pulte to also benefit one of our important resort hotels in the city of Rancho Mirage. So that brings us here today, Mr. Mayor. City staff and the city subcommittee and the Pulte representatives have fashioned this entitlement agreement. It's a tentative agreement, and I want to sincerely thank our city attorney, Steve Quintanilla, because we were maybe not floundering, but we were working back and forth on this over the past couple weeks. He got a hold of it, rewrote the whole thing from our standpoint to make sure it comports to the city's format that we need from a language and formatting standpoint. And he's working directly with Jim Vaughn. Thank you, Jim, for working on behalf of Pulte Homes all the way up until probably 10 o'clock this morning to put this together. So the council, you have this in front of you today, and you have the recommendation on page 1 of your staff report. And Mr. Mayor, if I can turn it over to the city attorney, I think he would like to go through a couple of highlights of the tentative agreement. Steve?
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
So what you have before you is it's basically an agreement that outlines how we're going to process this project through the city of Rancho Mirage. So I think of it as a pre-annexation development agreement. So this agreement will, if the council approves it, will commit the city and the developer to work together on having this property annexed into the city. We're talking about the 320 acres. But what we will do first is that we will work out the details of a pre-annexation agreement. The county, LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission, processes all annexations within the county, and they like to see pre-annexation agreements, development agreements come through, so they know precisely what's going to be developed there. And in that pre-annexation agreement, we set forth the zoning, which is a really big issue. So we would also agree to, the city would also agree to adopt the Section 24 specific plan that was approved by the tribe, and the tentative track map that was approved by the tribe, And we would use their environmental document, their environmental impact statement, which was prepared under the federal environmental laws as our EIR. And there's been a determination made by my office that the environmental impact statement was processed pursuant to not only NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, but also it meets the requirements of CEQA. So that will make this project a lot easier to process. In addition to approving and adopting the entitlements that were approved by the tribe, the city would also be consider whether or not we need to amend the text or the maps that are in our general plan, or whether we need to amend any of the text or maps of our zoning code. And naturally, or normally, as we always do with projects, the City Planning Commission will be presented with a preliminary development plan that will eventually work its way up to the City Council. So there are other entitlements that have to be approved before they can even break ground out there. There are some of the other issues that this particular agreement deals with that is going to be transferred over to the pre-annexation agreement. It deals with this municipal services review study that cities have to have prepared when there's a proposal to annex territory. And basically what that study does is that it analyzes, it kind of puts together, it has a plan for how services are going to be provided to the area. And so we look at things such as the type of services, the level of services, the range of services, whether we need new services or we need to extend them, and the timing of those services. This plan also looks at infrastructure needs for the project. So that brings up the issue of financing, because there will be costs associated with providing this new infrastructure and these services. In the agreement, we include in this agreement, there's an agreement to agree to include in the pre-annexation agreement the developer's consent to create a community facilities district, and we have that standard condition in most of our, well, actually in all of our PDPs and or subdivision maps. And if the CFD, the community facilities district, is a district it's an assessment district that's set up that imposes an assessment, which is like a tax, a property tax on the property owners to pay for certain services and or pay for infrastructure. And if for some reason a community facilities district doesn't work or it's not sufficient to provide enough money to pay for these services, they'll agree to come up with some other alternative form to help finance these services and the infrastructure. One of the issues that came up during the negotiations has to do with, well, what happens if there is not going to be sufficient revenue to pay for these services and infrastructure. And so we have in the agreement that if we determine anytime during the annexation proceedings that it's going to create a burden on the city within the next 10 years, then we can pull the plug on the annexation. So that's a determination that would be made by the city council. If we make that determination, we have to meet with the developer to discuss it, to see if there's ways that we can come up with that will fill that gap. And so Sean Smith and Joseph Carpenter of Economic Development have been working on that particular analysis. And I guess the last important issue is that the developer pays for all the costs of consultants, including the legal fees. So there's not going to be any out-of-pocket costs. So, and the reason why we're asking for a tentative approval is because we want to make sure, absolutely sure, that we will have no problems with the CEQA analysis. I got a copy of big portions of the environmental impact statement, and I'm going through the process of determining for sure that we will be able to use that EIS as our EIR for the project. So between now and the next meeting, I'll be working with Mr. Vaughn from Polte to kind of tie up these loose ends, and we'll come back with this, something identical to the agreement you see in here, but a lot tighter.
Does the representative from Pulte desire to say anything at this time? It's not mandatory.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Bob Paradise. I represent Pulte, and this is Jim Vaughn with me. We just wanted to come up and say thank you for all the efforts put together from Randy and Mr. Quintanilla to get this agreement put together. It was a lot of after-hours negotiations and discussions, and we just want to say we really appreciate it. And also that we look forward to talking about the pre-annexation agreement and moving this thing forward. So thank you.
And we can answer any questions you might have.
Question.
Thank you.
Sorry, are there any further questions from the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion, please.
I'd move that the City Council tentatively approve the Section 24 Entitlement Processing Agreement with Pulte Homes and SCC Rancho Mirage Holdings, and direct the City Manager and City Attorney to work with the Council Subcommittee and the developer on finalizing the agreement for City Council approval at the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting.
And I would second that.
Please vote. Motion is approved, 5-0.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just thank a couple of other people, like picking up an Oscar or something, right? Robert Lee, our Deputy City Attorney, helped a lot on this project, and so did our Planning Manager, Bud Kopp, Joseph Carpenter, and Sean Smith. Thank you very much for working on Stan Hoffman's economic and market study that Pulte put together. And Bob Paradise, thank you very much. And then finally, Bob Rourke. Thank you. Bob brought SCC Group in several years ago. I don't know how many years ago. I met him at Desert Valley Builders Association some time ago, and he's quiet about it, but I think he was instrumental in making sure this project is compatible with the City of Rancho Mirage. Thank you, Bob.
I didn't see him hiding back there. Okay, going on to the approval of the fiscal year 2016-17 rent levels. This will be Joseph Carpenter, our Senior Management Analyst.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item today and the second item are both for the Housing Authority Board. So this is a request to receive and approve the fiscal year 2016-17 rent levels for Parkview Villas, San Jacinto Villas, Santa Rosa Villas, and Whispering Waters. The annual income recertification was completed by Housing Authority staff and the Housing Authority's property management company, Hyder & Company. Pages 10-4 through 10-10 of your staff report identify the proposed rents at the 4 Housing Authority properties for the upcoming fiscal year. This concludes my brief report, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, council members? Are there any questions from the audience? If none, I will call for a motion, please.
I will make the motion that the Housing Authority Board of Directors receive and approve the fiscal year FY 2016 to 2017 rent levels.
Second.
Please vote. Motion is approved 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, just wanted to point out that the new rent levels do include, as they have in the last couple of years, the subsidy for out-of-pocket medical expenses. So we are one of the few cities that provides this kind of coverage for our residents.
Well, and we also review that criteria each year to make certain the person does qualify for the affordable housing.
Thank you.
And Joseph, again, if you will, our Senior Management Analyst, approval of the revisions to the fiscal 2016-17 rules and regulations.
Honorable Chair, members of the Housing Authority Board, before you today is a request to adopt revisions to the smoking policy and the rules and regulations for the Housing Authority properties. Smoking is currently prohibited inside units and in common areas at each property, restricting the activity to individual unit patios only. The current policy is problematic for non-smoking residents due to the presence of secondhand smoke. The revisions being proposed to the rules and regulations would prohibit smoking anywhere on Housing Authority property by new residents. Those residents that already reside at one of the 4 properties will still be permitted to smoke on their patios. While these revisions will not immediately address the current issues related to smoking, it will ultimately result in all 4 Housing Authority properties being completely smoke-free. Thank you for your consideration of the revised rules and regulations this afternoon. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joseph. Does council have any questions?
You know, in the review of this item, we tried to do something to protect our residents from that third-party smoke, and eventually all of those smokers will be phased out, I would think, over a period of time, and we will have a non-smoking facility, which would be a great benefit to a number of the residents there.
Well, would that include medical marijuana?
No.
Right.
That does get tricky. You're right. That gets very delicate.
It would not include medical marijuana.
That's a good point.
Pardon me?
That is a different point. Leave it to the learned counsel to bring that up. Absolutely. And we were going along so well. Any other questions from council? Any questions from the audience? If none, I will ask for a motion regarding the approval of the...
I move that the Housing Authority Board of Directors approve adoption of the revised rules and regulations for the Housing Authority's age-restricted affordable housing properties, including the smoking provisions.
Second.
Please vote. Motion is approved 5-0. I will now ask our City Attorney, Steve Quintanilla, to discuss the closed session.
Mr. Mayor, the City Council at this point is going to recess into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4 regarding 4 potential cases. The Council will also consider 4 potential cases and 8 potential anticipated cases. And the Council will also consider the case of Veronica Juarez versus City of Rancho Mirage pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9.
Okay, we will now recess into closed session.